Well, welcome here, Worksaholics from across the country, and certainly want to pay a big thank you to Annie Mac Home Mortgage and the entire Annie Mac Nation. Big support coming from them. We just had a grand opening of a new Annie Mac Home Mortgage branch up in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. Partnered with some great big real estate companies up there to provide the Works productivity platform and MyWorks suite. So had a great week with grand opening of a new branch. And we have so many relationships from across the country that we are so proud to be affiliated with in any way, shape, or form. But whatever level of leadership you entrust in Works, I want you to know that it's relatively humbling. It really is, to know that there's some families that will have a better 2015 and certainly a better 2016 if we work together. And there's some folks that may have some better retirement planning. This is a pretty personal conversation for me. This is an opportunity for me to kind of show my guts a little bit from a standpoint of I've faced a lot of challenges in the last 30 years. I've faced a lot of adversity in residential real estate. If you're one of those folks that's making 150, 200 grand a year in your sleep, or if you're one of those rare sharks in residential real estate that can make $500,000 without thinking about it too much, then this class may not be for you. This is more of a class to understand task mastery over results management. Task management over results management is a lot of what this is about. And if you are a full-time working residential real estate agent and you have people that are dependent upon you, your daughter, someone who wants to go to college, someone who wants to have a nice wedding, if you have someone who's dependent upon you like a spouse who needs to have a quality lifestyle during retirement, if you're someone who has someone depending on you like the bills, you probably need to focus on task management more than results management, and hopefully this will be the right pivotal conversation for you. We start every session of Shark Feeding with Confucius' quote, "When it's obvious that goals cannot be reached, don't adjust the goals, adjust the steps that you're taking towards the goal." So we're about halfway through the calendar year of 2015, and I'll bet you there's a handful of people online today that had a goal to make 70, 90, 100, 120, 150, and you may or may not be on track. Well, Confucius say, change the action steps, don't change the goal. We have to always pay respect to Annie Mac Home Mortgage, and AnnieMacWorks.com is the domain name where you can get to know us better. But real quick, if you're online today for the first time and you have never done this before, take 2 minutes and like us on Facebook. Just go to Annie Mac Works on Facebook, then you're ultimately part of the family, because we post our on-demand library to Facebook, we post our worksheets, workbooks, tasks, everything to Annie Mac Works on Facebook. And if you happen to be a broker owner, go to the National Flagship Brokers section of Facebook and join up. We use the shark as the analogy not because it's a fierce, fearful situation, but instead because it's a alpha animal. It is a species that will never go hungry. It is a hunter who, no matter what the market looks like, he's going to go out and find some food. And we looked at those pictures on session 1, and we focused on the fear that was in the hearts of that kid in the kayak on the left or the surfer on the right. But really what it's about is, if I need to feed my family, I need to be able to go out and hunt. If I need to pay the bills, I need to go out and hunt. And the sharks really have an aptitude for that. Arguably my favorite slide that exists in the history of Works is sitting right here in front of you. If you don't like this slide, you ain't gonna like me, because the difference between a hunter and a bottom dweller is put out plainly in here, and this is absolutely one of my favorite analogies for our business, and that is that a catfish is a relative of a shark. They even look kind of similar, but it ain't no shark. Agents earning less than $50,000 a year in residential real estate in 2015 are related to top producers. They have the same license, they have the same business cards, they have the same MLS access, but they're not top producers. If you can't make six figures in residential real estate, you can't call yourself a top producer in 2015. And ultimately, top producers in any market, I don't care if it's Franklin, North Carolina, Denver, Colorado, Keokuk, Iowa, I don't care where you're at. If you can't do $3.25 million for a gross commission of $100,000, you're really not a top producer. Top earners earn over $100,000, and rainmakers, and many of them by name, rainmakers earn between $250,000 and $2 million in residential real estate. So the reason this slide, and if I was running a brokerage right now, this picture would be on the wall, because there'd be a keen awareness of all our realtors what the difference between top producers, rainmakers, and bottom dwellers are. The reason I think it's such a pointed observation for me on a personal level is because the ego is a dangerous thing. And you may be guilty of this as well. When you hit $1.6 million or you hit 2.1 and you're making 65, then you start to have this idea that you know what you're talking about. But I think humility is a potentially really powerful nemesis of the ego, and to have some humility about your journey. Say, look, okay, I'm at the 0 to 30,000 a year phase of my journey. I'm at the $30,000 to $60,000 phase of my journey. I'm at the $60,000 to $100,000 phase of my journey. And whatever phase of your journey on, let's be responsible to that. Let's say, okay, I'm personally responsible for this phase of my journey. I'm going to go out on a limb and say 30 hunters. 30. I'm talking about men and women who have a fierce resolve towards their own responsibilities in getting what it is they say that they need from the residential real estate business. They're hungry, they're tireless, they're dogged, persistent people. And I hate to say that after 30 years in the business and, now 2,000 or 3,000 people that were in my direct employ and tens of thousands that I'm associated with in some way, shape, or form, that I only know 30 real hunters. But the reason this is a pointed personal conversation is because I'm going to put it out there today. And I think Nick Saban's quote says what I'm talking about. Mediocre people don't like to be around high achievers. They make them uncomfortable. They're too crass. They're too arrogant. They're too pointed about things. They tell it like it is. And mediocre achievers don't like to be around high achievers. High achievers don't like to be around mediocre people either, because the quality of the effort that they're putting in puzzles high achievers. They can't figure out why they won't put in more effort. And hopefully, we're going to take a look at effort today. And if I had one goal for today, and we're going to be together for maybe another 30 minutes. If I had one goal, it's that there is an undeniable truth that is put into your career that you can no longer deny. That's it, right there. That there's an irrefutable truth that you can no longer say doesn't exist. Because if we achieve that today, then when you look in the mirror, that irrefutable truth is always going to be on your right shoulder. When you're looking at your kids on Christmas morning and you go, it's not that great, it's going to be this irrefutable truth that's going to be like a splinter in the back of your mind. It's going to hang heavy over you if you're not achieving your goals, because there is an irrefutable truth, an irrefutable formula that we're going to talk about today. Before we get into that formula that I think is going to be the call to action or the appearance of a teacher to you that is potentially important, I want to go over this past week's assignment. Some of you were with us on the first session. Some of you weren't, because I see new faces. But if you were, we asked you to do something. We asked you to fill out an electronic dashboard to give us a glimpse into where you're at in your career. And that dashboard was going to take into consideration the activities that you have been involved in during the last 30 days. So, for example, if Lisa or Lynn were to have submitted their dashboard, we could tell with pretty accurate forecast where they're at, where they've been, and where they may be heading. And it's this review of these activity items that is a formidable place to start our relationship. So I'm going to show you a few of the dashboards that we've gotten over the years and some of the most recent ones. And the ones that are making between 50 and 100 are really the most telling dashboards, because you can see if they're almost always doing buyers. You could see that. You could see if they're a lead gen type agent, or you could see if they're a listing gen type agent. You could see if they're a low price agent or a high price agent. You could see all these things, and mostly you could see their task mastery. So if I were to put out an ad that said, I'll pay $100,000 guaranteed in residential real estate, but you got to follow my rules, you got to submit this dashboard, I would know based on this dashboard what they're capable of so far and what I would have to change about the agent to help them see that six-figure income. But you could see pending transactions and listing transactions. You could see the tasks that they do, and you also see a lot of zeros typically, and that's not too offensive. But let's take a look at this particular pending transaction. What did we reveal quickly in their pending files? 22,000, 43,000, 105, 199, $299. They have $19,647 in pending transactions at this time. They also had 5 listings in their inventory, but here was something that we noticed real quick. Their average listing price was only $56,280, which was pretty low. And I don't care where you live in the United States of America, you can get your price point up above that. But because of that low price point, all the labor that they had done was only going to produce $8,400 in GCI. That was kind of a heartbreaking realization in their local market. But in order for this particular agent to get momentum and to start to see $150,000 in GCI, it was pretty obvious to us we were going to have to get systematized and automate certain tasks, and we're going to touch on those tasks in a little bit. This was a dashboard that we received a while back from a really powerful, smart, talented real estate agent. This was no small chump here. 6 listings totaling 1.7. This was an agent that already had an average price point of $279, $166. Many of us would appreciate that as an average. About $50,000 in gross commissions pending just in her listing inventory. And what we noticed about this individual, and this may be true for you, so please hear this. She was so good. She was so good. And I spoke to this one on the phone because she was so talented. When she was invited into somebody's home, there was an instant level of trust. There was an instant level of rapport. There was an instant level of credibility. Do you ever meet anybody like that? Maybe you're one of them. You walk in and you're immediately liked. And you're immediately appreciated. And you list probably 80 or 90% of the houses that you ever go in. Right? Well, I never even bring a listing presentation. I'm just so good. I just go in and I list them all. Well, isn't it? What's more sad? To have a person that's infinitely talented and closes 90% or 100% of the listings they go on, not going on any listing appointments? Or is it more sad to have an untalented salesperson who's not going on a listing appointment? I think it's sadder that when you have that talent and you have that expertise and you have that knowledge and you're not getting enough out of it. So we knew with this individual, just based on her income that she revealed to us and her talent that we could get a lot more out of this agent if we focused on some initiation activities and put her into, say, an extra 2 or 3 listing appointments a week. We could catapult her into potentially a very, very high 6-figure earner, and maybe even 7 one day if she managed her team properly. And I say 7 digits without reservation. There is a very specific formula that Steve Hogan in Miami could follow if he wanted to make $1 million something next year. There's a very specific formula that Nada Reyes in Coral Springs could follow if she wanted to make $1 million. It involves team management, it involves, multiple sources of business, it involves, a good-sized team of buyers agents and lead generation, but it is possible. But what we want to focus on now is that $100,000 a year benchmark. And this is probably the most common dashboard we get. We got about a dozen of them this week that look like this. And it said, hey, I got a couple pending transactions. My broker referred me a buyer as a lead. My sister's cousin's brother's friend bought a house from me. I got no listings in my inventory. I haven't done any REO applications. I haven't done any door hangers. I haven't talked to any FSBOs, expireds. But, I'm plugging along. I've got, about 10 grand in pending commissions. So I'm breathing. Now remember, this is the most common dashboard we get in residential real estate. It says at the top, hey, Russ, it was easy to fill this out. All I had to do was put zeros anywhere. Haha. I've been meaning to work the listing side for a while, and I even already have my postcards ready to go. I've got a nice landing page on Infusionsoft or Unbounce. I've got a 1-800 number capture system. I've got a source for expired listings through RedX, or I did a land voice contract. I even have a killer listing presentation and procedure, but I just stay on the sidelines like a fisher with all his gear standing on the riverbed. That's the most common theme in all the dashboards that we've received in 13 and a half years of doing this. Here's somebody who came to me a few years back and said they were absolutely petrified of prospecting. She said that she got a lump in her throat and that her mouth got very, very dry whenever she were going to talk to a for sale by owner or an expired, or if she was going to do any farming or just listed or just sold conversations, that she actually had a fear that she described as a fear of public speaking feeling. That when she was at the sidewalk and she saw the for sale by owner, that this emotional environment started to happen inside of her body that shot adrenaline through her gut and made her mouth dry, and it made her heart rate quicken, and it made the palms of her hands sweaty, just as though she was going on to speak in front of a large audience. That fear of rejection, or that fear or anxiety, was holding this individual back. And what we started to do with her is to take little teeny baby steps. And I'm so proud to say that this young lady is now consistently earning over 10 grand a month, and she sends me notes on a regular basis about her achievements. Now, before I get into the formula, and before I get into the assignment for the week, and before I get into one last analogy that's my own personal analogy that I really want to make you aware of, I want you to hear me say that I want you to be that next person. I want us to have a personal relationship because you actually applied what you learned. I want to speak to you on the telephone. I want to be a coach, a guide on the side, a mentor, and a friend. And the only people that I do that with are not people that pay me. I'm paid very handsomely by our sponsors. But the people who apply themselves, the people that assert the effort and then report that they asserted the effort and then let us know that they're doing it. Those become our private coaching clients. But if you don't ever take action and you send us an email that says, where do I get expireds? From RedX or LandVoice. We'll send you back the note. Get it from LandVoice, get it from RedX. But we're never going to become a private coaching relationship with you if you're not, reporting to us what you did and what the activities were, because those become the testimonials for the next group of sharks and the next group of customer first relationships. And it's our pleasure and our privilege to be involved in those relationships. But we kind of reserve those private coaching relationships to the people who are really applying themselves. So I'd like to challenge you to become one of those folks and reach out to us on Works and let us know what you're doing. My email will be available at the end of this thing, and I really do cherish the opportunity to hear from you about your achievements and what you're doing and your trials and tribulations, and if we can be involved in any way. But I promised you a formula. I promised you an irrefutable truth. And I know that some people who are online, because I recognize the names, know me well enough to know that I stand for, you can't beat me in a talking contest if we know the truth. And the truth is, there's a formula, and it's irrefutable. So the very last analogy that we're going to use about a formula has to do with fitness. Some of you may already see where I'm going with this. But there's a multi-billion-dollar a year diet and exercise industry that revolves around fitness, weight loss, and there's 70 some odd percent of Americans that are at some stage of obesity or being overweight. So 70% of the humanity that exists in the United States is at some level of overweight. So now there's this multi-billion-dollar a year industry that sends them secrets and formulas and, ideas about how they may become fit. But there's something called truth that is inescapable. And that is that there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of examples of fit and gorgeous people between the ages of 25 and 75 prove this irrefutable formula for us day in and day out. But the folks that are struggling with their weight are looking for solutions, if you know what I mean. Now, we're going to talk about this for just another minute or two, and then I'm going to lead you in a direction that will become your new irrefutable truth. So, because this huge number, and it's close to 70% now, are overweight or worse, or obese, or morbidly obese, the Health and Human Resources Division, Department of Health and Human Resources for the United States, has about a $700 billion budget. Close to a quarter of the federal outlay of money goes into health and human resources. And that their definition of their job, now, I don't want to get into a political conversation because I think spending $700 billion is kind of ridiculous, but to protect the health of the American people. So we learned that the number one priority of the $700 billion budget was to address the number one priority of obesity. That they say that it's the number one preventable cause of death in Americans, and it has just recently surpassed smoking. And that, in fact, and stick with me on this may be the first generation that will live a shorter lifespan than their parents because of obesity. So the Department of Health and Human Resources did a study with some of their $700 billion a year, and they took 5,000 people who had lost 100 pounds or more and kept it off for multiple years. So that's a pretty interesting study, right? So here was the formula that they came up with. They took in less than 2,000 calories a day. They exercised between 30 and 60 minutes 4 times a week or more. None of them exercised less than 4 times a week for 30 to 60 minutes. They drank 40 to 60 ounces of water every day, and some of them took a multivitamin. Even most, I guess the higher percentage of them took some sort of a multivitamin. So what the $700 billion budget learned is that in this multi-billion-dollar industry of diet and exercise, that there were 4 irrefutable truths. And that number 2 was the most exploited. That on average, the answer given of what they did during their 30, 60 minutes was walk. Did you hear that? They didn't do CrossFit. They didn't do, P90X. They just walked. And they had lost 100 pounds or more and kept it off for multiple years. So my question is, when Mike Ferry, Floyd Wickman, Tom Hopkins, Walter Sanford, Brian Buffini come to town and they're selling you a secret to become the next big realtor, I think it's very similar to the big secret being sold by, Susan Powder or Richard, I don't know their names anymore, but you get the idea. So here's the last question before we go into this formula, and it needs to provoke you into being a little annoyed. Do obese people not know what to do? Or are they simply unwilling? That is the pivotal question. Is there a misunderstanding about taking in 2,000 calories a day or less and exercising 3 or 4 times a week and drinking a little bit of water? Or is it that they just aren't willing to do it? In our industry, 79% of the people who are online today make less than $40,000 a year. 79% of the licensed active board members, they paid board dues, they got business cards, they went out and took the class, and 79% of them make less than $40,000 a year. The median income of that group is $18,000. Well, if you were making a median income of $18,000, so you're in the 79th percentile, and you're making a median income of 18, is it even worth it? I mean, to go and pass the license and pay for gas and take buyers out and do all this stuff. I mean, for a median income of 18, you might as well be in, a retail job or something like that. Meanwhile, 5 to 7% of the people, and in some marketplaces it's close to 9%, but in no marketplace in the United States have I found more than 10% making over $100,000. But there's this elite group, a little bit less than 1%, that make between $250 and $2 million. Well, I'm going to ask you, do the people on the left not know what to do, or are they just unwilling? Are you aware of what the folks on the right side of this continuum do and just not willing to do it? This might be the end of that today because we're going to solve that for you right now. And it's an irrefutable truth. It's a formula that's been proven tens of thousands of times. And I would say to Neda Reyes, as a friend of mine from 10 years ago, that her daughter used to babysit my kids when they were little, actually. A shark goes on 10 listing appointments per month. They hold themselves accountable to going on 2 to 3 listing appointments each week. 2 to 3, not 7, 2 to 3 listing appointments each week. And that the very, very minimum is that I'm taking 4 listings a year from that. 4 listings a month from that. Because I know if I can hold myself to a minimum of 4 listings per month, that's going to be 48 listings taken in a calendar year. I'm going to be making a comfortable $100,000 to $150,000 a year off of 25 to 35 closings. And there's some math in there that you should notice, that I'm not expecting all 48 to close. I'm expecting some to expire, and I'm expecting some to fall through prior to closing. So I'm holding myself accountable to some industry averages, with about 70 to 80% of my listings going to contract, and about 80 to 90%, maybe even 95% of mine going to closing. But ultimately, 25 to 35 closings a year would put you in the top 7 to 9% of all real estate agents in the country in any market that you're in. So I hate to get picking on NADA, but I just say, if we have to place some irrefutable truths, the first irrefutable truth is you got to be going on 2 to 3 listing appointments a week. The second irrefutable truth is that where will you get those listing appointments from? There's only a handful of sources of business in the residential real estate and they're in the residential real estate business, and that handful only is worked by a couple of people. In other words, it's not very competitive. I'm sorry, guys, but I've done this for 30 years. And when I pick up the phone and calls expires, it's the same 4 or 5 people that are calling them every week. It's not a big group of realtors that are doing it. Trust me. So when you decide that you need to go on 10 listing appointments a month to feed your family, you've got the chum line behind the boat that says expired listings from last night, this weekend, last week, last month, 3 to 6 months ago, 6 to 12 months ago, and a year or more are the most abundant source of listing appointments that you're ever going to find. In other words, I'm going to say this, don't go on to any other sources of business until you've exploited all of these. Because there are families in your marketplace that expired in June of 2014 that don't know that the market's better right now. There are families that expired in the spring of 2014 that don't even know that they could sell their house in a month right now while their kids are out of school. So the pace of the market has picked up, and there's many qualified buyers out there buying houses, but there's not enough listings. So do you think this team of a couple hundred agents from across the country could go out and be the change that they want to see in the real estate industry and go out and build the inventory? Yes, if they went to the expired listings from January, February, March of 2015 and told those folks that the market is better now and that they could sell their house for the highest possible price, if we can close by August 30th, 2015, I can get your house sold. That's an easy conversation to have. The second chum line exists in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen: for sale by owners, door knocking around just listed, just solds, telephone surveys around just listed, just solds. But do yourself a favor, don't go on to by owners and telephone surveys around just listed and just solds until you've done a lot of, or most or all of the expireds. It's very important. Don't go on to list pendants notifications and Cozy Cody Pick-a-Pay mortgages until you've already done expireds by owners and just listed, just solds. So we're showing you the chum line, but we also want to prioritize where you're going to do your work. Work in the expired market, especially those 2 and 3 and 4 month old expireds. Work in the for sale by owner market, because there's hundreds and hundreds of families within a 20 square mile window of your house right now where you're sitting that have their house for sale by owner. And there's plenty of people that are nearby a house that you just listed or just sold that are thinking about selling their house. So you can go to list pendants notifications down the road. You can go to tax roll purchases from 2005, 6, and 7. You can even go to property managers like Green River Capital and Impact and Cozy Cody Pick-a-Pay mortgages, but I wouldn't recommend it. I would spend most of your effort on the next 90 days on these 2 sources of business right here. And I would wait until you're a seasoned prospector to start going after the list pendants and the Cozy Cody Pick-a-Pay. So we're going to ask you a question. It was on the first line of Charles Dickens' book. It said, am I to be the hero of my own life, or is that stage going to be set by someone else? If I'm going to be the hero of my own life, I know I can hold myself accountable to this new irrefutable truth, to go on not less than 10 listing appointments a month, 2 to 3 a week, to take 4 listings per month is my new minimum benchmark, to list not less than 48 homes per year, and to earn not less than $100,000. Just the act of writing those words down will change your consciousness. I'm not a metaphysical guy. I'm not a Zig Ziglar, Tony Robbins wannabe. I'm a bull in a china shop, and I'm a lot more like Bill Parcells or, a football coach than I am a motivational speaker, and I already know that. So don't think I'm not aware that I'm not telling you a joke every 5 minutes. But you've got to get to a point where you're managing the task, not the results. Well, in the whole equation above your screen on the right-hand side, what of those are manageable? Can you manage if you go on 10 listings a month? No, you can't manage that. Can you manage if you take 4 listings per month? No, that's a goal. That's not something that's a manageable task. Can you manage that you list not less than 48 homes per year? No, you cannot manage that. The only task that you can manage is how many human touches can you make. That is the only manageable task in the residential real estate business, other than posting for list leads. Like you could post 10 Craigslist ads. Okay, that's a task. But in the listing side, stop managing how many listing appointments. Use that as your goal. But start managing just what you can affect change on. You can affect change on, did you make 5 human touches today? Or did you make 20 human touches today? And do you think that correlates with your income? We made an analogy of the overweight population. They might not correlate directly the Golden Corral buffet and their weight problem. In their mind, that doesn't correlate, right? That doesn't change. That's not what's making me heavy. Well, does the number of human touches that you make correlate to your income? If you start to realize that correlation, it's a game changer, baby. That is a absolute income generation game changer. Now, we have given you what I consider to be the most user-friendly scripts, dialogues that are available in the industry. I've read them all. I know Mike Ferry's game. I know Floyd Wickman's game. I love Floyd Wickman. I am a big fan of Walter Sanford and Tom Ferry, but ultimately, scripts have to be personal, they have to be a conversation, and they have to be something that you're comfortable with. So we've given you 3 versions of what we call our opening lines. See, a script is better served to be conversational than it is to sound like a parrot. Wah, 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 wah. So when we give you opening lines, we want to give you some examples of how you could open dialogue with a season expired who was on the market back in January or February. So let me read a couple of them. Good morning. I'm sorry to bother you so early, but I needed to catch you before you left the house to go to work. My name is Russ Fitzpatrick. I'm a real estate agent here in Coral Springs for the past 25 years. The reason I'm calling is that last week I pulled your property up on 5th Avenue. And this morning when I was researching 4-bedroom homes, it didn't come up on the market anymore. That's an opening line. That's all it's meant to be. Just a way to open the conversation. Here's another one. Good morning. I'm sorry to bother you so early, but I wanted to catch you before you went to work. My name's Russ Fitzpatrick. Sell real estate right here in Coral Springs for the past 25 years. The reason I'm calling is that last week we sold the house on 8th Street around the corner from you. And because we just sold that house, we were getting a lot of activity of buyers that were shopping here in Shadowwood. During these past few weeks, I've probably gotten 6 or 7 families that want to move while their kids are out of school. I just wanted to find out everything about your home so that I might be able to help you get it sold. Now, that's a perfect opening line for a for sale by owner. I just wanted to find out everything about your home so that I might be able to help you get it sold. And you told them that you have a lot of buyer activity, and then they're typically going to say, well, do you have a buyer for my house? I can give you 3%. I say, well, I don't know if I have a buyer for your house because I haven't seen your house yet, but I know that if it's not on the market, a lot of these buyers aren't going to see your house. Is there a chance that maybe I can come by and sit down with you and take a look at your house, and maybe we can go over some math, and we can see if we can do some math that'll help you get your house sold. Another opening line, terrific for just solds. Good morning, good evening. Sorry to call you after the dinner hour, but I wanted to catch you when you were home. My name is Russ Fitzpatrick. I'm a real estate agent here in Coral Springs for the past 25 years. So you would change that dialogue to fit your The reason I'm calling is that last week we sold the house on 8th Street. We've had a lot of good activity here in Shadowwood of families that have been calling us to buy a house so they can close this summer while their kids are out of school. Can I ask you a question, Sean? If I could sell your house and close on it by the 4th of July, would you at least consider moving this summer? I mean, would you maybe consider moving this summer? During my opening line on an expired listing, a buy owner, I want to, or even on a just listed, just sold, I want to say the name of their subdivision once, and I want to give them a specific date if I can. So if I could sell your house by August 1st, before the kids go back to school, would you be at least interested in talking to me? It's a very pivotal thing to mention a date like that. It gives them a jar. It does help. Now, I'm not going to take a half an hour and go through all of these because I think that you'd fall asleep on me on the webinar. But there's 3 sections that the conversation can go in after your opening lines. The first one is clever conversation. Clever means that you sound like a realtor who knows what he's talking about. We've noticed a measurable uptick in buyer activity during the last couple weeks. The mortgage market has loosened up quite a bit. 4-bedroom homes are in demand. Move-in ready properties are at an all-time low. Inventory of move-in ready homes move-in ready properties at an all-time low. Buyers don't want to run down foreclosure, and they don't want to wait 6 to 8 months for a short sale to be approved. This summer may be the best time to make a move. Could you imagine if you opened up your dialogue with one of these 3 opening lines? Marianne Doria from Myrtle Beach. She opens it up and she says, "Good morning. No. You know that buyer side activity is up right now? There's been a measurable uptick in buyer side activity in Myrtle Beach. And the mortgage market has really loosened up. 4-bedroom homes are in demand. Move-in ready properties, inventory of move-in ready homes is at an all-time low. And you know something else? Marianne? Buyers don't want to wait around for foreclosures. They don't want to wait 6 to 8 months for a short sale to be approved. So this summer might be the best time to get your house sold." Another sector called appearing interested. So why do you feel your house didn't sell so far? This is the one I was challenged with the most. Appearing interested in their dialogue. So you might want to say something like, "Can I ask you why you decided to sell your home yourself without using a real estate brokerage?" And you've got a couple of additional examples of some appearing interested conversations you can have in the mix. How about this one? Ask thoughtful questions. Hey, and do it with a sincere tone. If you ever found a really good agent, would you consider trying to move this summer? Bob, have you ever looked at how affordable the homes are where you're moving to see if maybe moving this summer might make sense? I mean, what if you waited till the fall or till the new year and the house prices up where you were moving to went up and the mortgage interest rates move up because they're talking about the Fed raising rates? I mean, what if we just got it done now while everything was real affordable? These thoughtful questions are the difference maker between a door getting slammed in your face or a buy owner saying, "I'll pay you 3%. Every buyer's going to say, "I'll pay you 3%, aren't they? Every buy owner's going to say, "Well, I'm glad to pay you 3%, but I'm not listing my house." Well, clever conversations, appearing interested, and asking thoughtful questions is the elixir. It's the lubricant. It's the romance of it all. And it's the way that you can keep the door open or the phone call going. Now, you see that shark jumping out of the water and snatching that seal? This is called the "if I could, would you." It takes place after some clever conversation, after appearing interested, and after asking some thoughtful questions. Your opening line went smoothly. He tried to hang up on you as soon as you called him, because they all do. Don't worry, Lisa. They all try. They're all going to tell you they're not interested as soon as you call them. And then what you do is you say, "Hey, while I have you on the phone, did you know that there's been a measurable uptick in buyer side activity here in Jacksonville?" Did you know that the mortgage market has really loosened up and the inventory of move-in ready homes is at an all-time low in Jacksonville? So there's very few houses for people to buy. Let me ask you something, Bob. If I could sell your house and close by August 1st, would you at least consider letting me do some math and see what we could do together? Because I think this summer is going to be the best time ever to sell your house. The kids are out of school, the interest rates are still low, inventory of move-in ready homes is low, and there's been a measurable uptick in buyer activity. So I think if you strike now while the iron's hot, before the interest rates move up and before the inventory creeps up, we can get your house sold for the highest possible price. If I could show you why June and July of 2015 are going to be the best time to sell your house for the highest possible price, would you at least let me come over and bring some of my company's marketing information? That's a closing question. It's enunciated with silence at the end of it. If I could show you why June and July are going to be the best time to sell your house for the highest possible price, would you at least allow me to come over and bring some of my company's marketing materials? They always say, the person who talks next loses. If I could sell your house for $185, now imagine a house expired for $185, and you said to the client, listen, if I could sell your house for $185 and literally go to the closing table and move out on July 30th, would you at least let me come over and show you how we sold that house on 8th Street so fast? So you've got what we call closing questions that are called the if I could would yous, and they're available on your script right here. We actually just put it on Facebook as well. There's a shark feeding dashboard available for you on that link below. There's a saying that says, when the teacher is ready, the student will appear. No, it's the other way around, isn't it, Fitz? When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Well, if the student isn't ready, it doesn't matter what the teacher says, does it? So you've got an understanding that's brewing that people who earn over $100,000 a year in residential real estate are hunters. They don't wait for the scraps to fall. They don't wait for their sphere of influence to refer them a seller. They don't wait for a mailer to bring them a seller. They don't wait for, even their farm area to produce. They're hunters. And that means that they manage the touches that they can make. So if the student is ready, the teacher is going to make an assignment. And you've got 5 days between now and Monday. And please hear me on this. I know I start to sound like Charlie Brown's teacher. Take the next 5 days and hold yourself accountable to 40 human touches. Reluctantly expect that 30 of them are going to hang up. 30 of them are going to say, no, I don't want to talk to you. But 1 out of 4, 10 of them are going to have a reasonable conversation where you can get in your clever conversation, you can get in your thoughtful questions, you can get in your appearing interested dialogue. And then at the end of those 10 conversations, my bet after 40 human touches is that you're going to probably have somewhere around 3 bona fide listing conversations or presentations that can come out of that. And I'm talking from 30 years of experience. That's about the numbers that they'll be. Don't get mad at yourself if you actually make 40 human touches and you only have 6 or 7 conversations, because if you're new at it, Linda, if you're new at it, Lynn, you might not feel comfortable when they say no, they're not interested, continuing the dialogue. But eventually you'll start to get a kind of a callus about you or a swagger about you, and you'll be able to say to them, well, listen, can I ask you a question? And then you'll keep them on the phone. And those conversations are the ones that will turn into listing appointments, I promise. Now, what we're asking from you as the coach during shark feeding is the name, address, and phone number of the 40 human touches that you made. We're asking for detailed notes from any of the 10 conversations that you had. That's this week in the next 5 days. And we're asking for you to make detailed notes about what time the listing appointment happened. Acknowledge what happened when you first walked into the property. Did the seller, was he confrontational? Was he sweet? Was he welcoming? What I've noticed is even the toughest sellers over the phone or at the door knocking experience are soft and sweet when you're invited in their home. Did you present anything to them? Did you show them anything about your listing company? Did you show them a CMA or a BPO? Did you ever pull out a listing agreement? These are the things that we want to know if we're going to be able to coach you in a private coaching environment. Did they list with you? No, they didn't. Well, why not? Why do you think they did or didn't? And how are you following up with them over the next couple of weeks to hopefully get their listing? And what we're asking from you as an assignment for the next 5 days is not only to make the 40 human touches, but to detail notes from the conversations, because this information that's being asked of you right now, if you're serious about having a private coach, if you're serious about a relationship with someone who's sold 3,500 homes over the last 28 years, if you're serious about a relationship with somebody who can help you make more money, then you've got to take the first step. Then you're going to tell us, did you take a listing or not in the last 5 days? And send me an update direct to my personal email at russ@associateworks.com. I'll answer any questions that you might have about anything in that personal email. I have an abundance of time, and my number one passion is one-on-one private coaching. Trust me when I tell you, I love to affect lasting positive change on situations, and I can do that if together we can start to manage what we can control. And the only thing you can control in this situation is whether you're going to sit on the sidelines and wonder what it would be like, or if you're actually going to face some fear of anxiety, like that lady that we gave you an example with earlier today. Face some fear of rejection, face that public speaking fear that you may be building, and go out and do it anyway. And hold yourself just to 5. Don't make yourself do 40 in one shot, because that's a big bite. Just do 5 by the end of the day tomorrow. Today's Wednesday. Tomorrow at 5, you've done at least 5 warm human contacts. That would be an achievement for somebody who's facing some fears. You can go to sharkfeedingworks.com and download the script. We've even given you our proprietary Excel CRM manager. It allows you to manage all of your contacts that you make in one place, and that's a great thing to have when you're building your follow-up systems. Some of you have attended the For Sale by Owner e-bowl class, and we use a CRM mechanism with our For Sale by Owners that we're really, really proud of. So in closing, what is the irrefutable truth? What is the undeniable elixir that's going to be the truth that's going to sit on your right shoulder every time you look yourself in the mirror from now on? Well, the shark feeding combination is 40 live human contacts. About 5 to 7 a day in a work day. 5 to 7 a day in a work day? Not too terrible, is it? You think that's a bad way to make $100,000 a year? Talking to 7 humans a day? It's not too bad. 10 listing candidates to come out of those 40. This is the works formula. This is the shark feeding combination. Then at least 10 of those 40 will become warm conversations. And then in any given week, I'm holding myself to a predetermined benchmark of 3 listing presentations and at least 1 listing taken. If Steve Hogan down in Miami takes a listing a week for the next 10 weeks, we're high-fiving. I'll drive down to Miami and high five, because he's going to be one of the happiest, well-compensated, confident realtors in the state. Anybody who's taken a listing a week in 2015 has a swagger about them. And they got more buyer leads than you know what to do with. There's one last thing I want to tell you. One of my best buddies in the real estate business up in Orlando, Florida, he saw a Facebook post from a realtor from the west side of the state in Florida, and the Tampa agent said, "What's the best lead generation software for buyers that's out there?" And a few people answered Market Leader, a few people answered Boomtown, a few people answered Tiger Leads. This agent in Orlando that I know for 20 years goes, "Listings." If you take listings, you never have to buy any software for buyers. You might have to buy some sort of a CRM for buyers, but you're never going to need to buy any leads, because you're going to have enough leads that you're never going to have to worry about buyer leads ever again, right? Well, the clock does start now. You've got 5 days before session 3, and the final session of shark feeding, module 3 of 3, is a very good opportunity for us to get clear about some last things before we move on and decide if you want to be part of our private coaching relationship. Remember, there's no cost for our private coaching relationship. It's all sponsored entirely by Annie Mac Home Mortgage. And Annie Mac Home Mortgage is one of the nation's top 20 mortgage lenders. They've been doing business in Florida. They're doing business in 38 states. And I would love it if you would reach out to them to make a mortgage application or a pre-qualification and mention the Annie Mac Works vehicle as the reason that you're doing it. My quote from Ellis Boyd Redding, or Red from Shawshank Redemption, says, "Get busy living or get busy dying." And it says to you, hey, you now know that all you got to do is talk to 7 people today. And if you talk to 7 people a day, you're gonna hit your 40. That's not a terribly hard thing to do. One day you could sit down and hunker down and do 20 in one day, and then you only have one other day of work. And I would submit to Nada, as a friend, that if you did that 2 days a week, you'd have 2 listing appointments, especially because I know about her charisma and her likability, and I know about how trustworthy she is to a new client. So making the 20 contacts twice a week is enough for most agents to get into enough living rooms. Looks like Lynn is challenging some folks to see if we can get some realtors on board for the challenge. And I will extend the offer of personal and private coaching to anybody online here who takes action this week, because it would be my pleasure and my privilege to be a part of your success during the next 3 to 6 months and prove merit to this formula that's more than 17 years old now, of 40 contacts a week. So one last big thank you to Annie Mac. If you haven't liked us on Annie Mac Works at Facebook, go ahead and do that, and we will see you for part 3 of 3, shark feeding. Thanks again.